Good morning. Merry Christmas. Happy Feast of the Holy Family. So about a week ago, my son Matthew asked me a question. He said, "Did it have to be St. Joseph?" And all of us that were at the table with him kind of looked at him and were pretty confused at what he was trying to ask. So we asked him to clarify, and he said, well, could God have chosen somebody else? Or could he have swapped him out with a different person? And I think he was confused by the part in the gospel reading where he talks about Joseph was going to secretly divorce Mary because of the pregnancy that wasn't his. And it made him think some pretty deep 7-year-old thoughts. And immediately in that moment, I had two pretty quick realizations. Number one was he'd thought about it, and he was pretty sure that he needed his mom, but Dad, I'm not so sure that he was convinced of that part. And the other thing that I realized is that kids can open the eyes of the adults sometimes to the big why questions about God. So there are a handful of these big why questions, and sometimes they open up a can of worms. One of the why questions was asked just a couple days ago, yesterday, in fact, on Christmas. And if you were lucky enough to hear both of our priests' homilies, you heard why was he made man was the question. Why did God have to come to earth as a man? Why didn't he just show up in a big chariot of fire with the big theme music playing in the background and just save us all in a swoop? And Father Glenn answered at Christmas Eve. He said, so that the love that he felt for us could be felt person to person in a personal way. And Father Benny answered, so that as each one of us followed his light through the darkness, we could follow it in our own steps, just as he walked his steps from Bethlehem to Calvary. So another one of those why questions is the one I think that Matthew was asking, and that was, why did he have to come in a family? Why couldn't he just come all grown up and get to work already? And I think the answer to that has to do with God revealing himself through time. So in the Old Testament, the family comes pretty quickly. It comes in Genesis, in fact. Adam and Eve are put together, man and wife. And God puts them together, and he puts them together not in some flowery, beautiful way with lots of fanfare and romance, but he says, go out and be fruitful and multiply. And it sounds a whole lot more like they're going to be a couple of farmers, and they are. And it's pretty clear from the way he says that they're supposed to do a couple of things. Number one is they're supposed to make a family, raise some children. Also, like farmers, there could be some hardship, and that they're going to share that hardship, and that they should do like farmers do. And being in a family means tilling and planting and working together, and then planting your seed, and then trusting and having faith that it will grow. So we heard today in the first reading that a little while later, Abram was someone that had that faith. And God rewarded that faith with a family. So right before today's first reading in the Old Testament, Abram was in a ceremony of making a covenant promise with God. And A covenant promise is a promise of God that will last forever, cannot be broken. And so the only thing that lasts forever is God, and so it needs God to be the deed holder of the promise. And so marriage is a lot like a covenant. It's a vow. It's a lifelong promise. It's the beginning of a family. It's a promise of lifelong love forever. And it has God as a witness, because you need God to be there as the witness to ensure that it will last for this lifelong period. Now, this is why our church, in her wisdom, considers itself as the arbiter of what's a marriage. Because it's not just a box that you check on a tax bracket. It's not just a status that you check on your Facebook page. It has God involved. Also, it points towards God's love for all of us. And so it needs God to be involved in it in order to be what it really is. It's like covenant. So in the reading today, Father Benny and Father Glenn can both attest to this. Abram got done with a day of religious ceremony and this covenant ceremony, and he was tired, and they could both attest to the fact that you'll get pretty tired after a day of religious ceremony. So he goes back to his tent, and he's feeling worn out, and he's feeling like he's not sure that what God said is really going to come true, or he doesn't understand quite how it's going to come true. But God says, don't fear, go outside, have faith in me, look up at the stars, and that's how big your family's going to be. So the part that isn't in today's reading is that when he gets back to his tent, it's the middle of the day. So he can't see those stars. Now he knows they're out there. He just can't see them because it's the daytime. So God's asking him to continue to have that faith that he's had. A little while later, God will articulate that covenant even more in the Ten Commandments, and he uses the fourth commandment in a special way. It's a hinge. The first three commandments are of God, how to love God, how to honor God. All the rest of the commandments are how to love one another. But right in the middle is the fourth commandment. And God uses it as a hinge, because in the middle is a relationship both with a father and with everybody else, your family. So it points at God's love, and it shows us our love for one another. So there's a double-edged sword in honor thy father and mother. Yes, all the children are supposed to honor their father and mother, but also there's a responsibility of the parents in that they are supposed to love and protect their children in a way that will show them the love of God that will last forever. Because in that's where those children get their seeds of faith. So the Holy Family walks into the temple to do their duty under the law of Moses. Now remember that just weeks before, Mary is pregnant, and it's not Joseph's baby. I want you to think about what might happen in today's society if that were the case. What would society tell those folks to do? I think the odds are that they would get divorced, or there would be an abortion, or both. Because sometimes in today's society, it's hard for folks to hear God and his will for them. They can't hear his voice. Perish the thought, right? What an awful thing to say. But how many little salvations have we lost because of those things? Now, thank God for his providence. He knew that Joseph was the type that would hear his voice. And all of a sudden, I think we have an answer to Matthew's question. Joseph was a man of faith, and Mary was a woman of faith. And so that's why Joseph was the father. That's why Mary was the mother. So of course, Jesus is going to be a little baby that comes through a family, and it's going to be a family of faith. God's used the family relationship through all of salvation history to point the way to what a relationship with him is supposed to look like. In fact, his family relationship within himself is a family relationship. It's a relationship of a father and a son and a love between the two of them that's so profound that there's this love that's a Holy Spirit. And all together, it's all God. And that points the way to the forever love that we've been talking about. So Simeon grabs a hold of the little baby. And I like to think that when he looked down in the face of the little baby Jesus, that he could finally see all the stars that Abram didn't see when he came out of the tent. He could see that covenant that he made with Abram fulfilled, and he could see the new one being begun in the person of Jesus. And now it extended not just to this one family or tribe of people, but to everyone. And it would last forever. So he blesses the family because he knows that they'll need it. Because being in a family is hard. It's a lot of hard work sometimes. It's tilling and trusting. And then he prophesies to Mary. It says that she'll be pierced right to her heart, because he knows that in the heart of Jesus pumps Mary's blood. And so when he is pierced, she will be too. And he also knows that somehow, even though he can't know exactly how, through that blood, there is redemption for the world. And then all of us get to enter into the family of God. Of course, we know how that happens now. So Anna is also there, and she's a story of tragedy, it would seem like, but also great hope. It says that she was married for 7 years, and then she was alone until she was 84. She was widowed, and that sounds like an awful story to us. But there's hope in that. And especially in this year when people have lost people that they love. See, 7 is the Hebrew number for perfect. So really what that 7-year marriage was just a perfect marriage for her. And after it was over, she went to be with her bigger family, the family at the temple, the family of the church. There's a guarantee that she would see the people that she loved again and be with those that would support her while she was still here on earth until then. So we find that our family love translates up to this other family, this church family. And so the forever promise is in the church family as well. So because each family, each small family of faith has bonds that are made so tight by God that it's like a little brick. And it's held together tight. And that's the little church, little C church. And then love is given to that family by Christ and witnessed by God. And it overflows from each of those families. And it's shared and mingled and mixed together. And that's mortar. And then all those families can be put together, one on top of the next. And the mortar holds all of those bricks together. And that's the big C church. That's the big C family. That's the Catholic Church, against whom the gates of hell shall never prevail. Never. That sounds like a forever promise again. So our family, my family, is not the Holy Family. And some days we try really hard just to be a good family. And God has blessed us as we've tried to be faithful with 7 little kids. And as a joke, a year ago, I thought it was a joke. I got my wife an icon of Mary, Our Lady of Seven Sorrows. I didn't want to mess up any of the beautiful decorations that were here in the sanctuary, so it's out in the narthex, and you can look at it on your way out if you wish to. But of course, we have the 7 children, so it's the 7 sorrows, and all the swords are piercing Mary's heart, and I thought that'd be real funny. But as it turns out, all those children are 7 joys. And now when we look at it, we remember that in their heart beats our blood. And when we look at it, we remember that sometimes it's going to be hard to open ourselves up to the point that we can be pierced, but that we need to. We need to open ourselves up that much so that they will understand what love so profound is, that they can trust and love themselves, and those will be the seeds of their faith. See, we point the way for our children to the forever love of God, and in return for that, they reveal to us as parents, little bits at a time, what God's love is like for all of us. And so we grow in holiness too. So I just ask all of you, pray for your own family vocation, whatever it looks like, whatever your family looks like, pray for your own family vocation. And pray for all the families that are around you. They need it. Be open to receive any blessings, family blessings that come your way from God, from others. Because blessed families are happy families. And remember that families in their nature, they reveal God's forever love, and that sows the seeds of faith. They give hope to anyone that can see Him in God's plan for salvation of the future, and they act as conduits for God's grace of love to flow on the family, your community, the church, and the entire world. God bless all of you.